You know how I like my coffee, Marcy?
How?
With a little pastry and a little conversation.
This is very true.
So,
Witty banter and a blueberry bagel.
I'm going to talk about a lesson I learned from a very curious but very young barista at our local coffee shop. If you're ever in the Panhandle of Texas, come to see Palo Duro Canyon, which is where we live, and it gets super hot outside, and you want to break. Check out the Palace Coffee and Canyon. Check out the Palace Shake.
It's tasty.
And
So this lesson from a barista and how our viewers can learn from it as well, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm Mark McKay.
I'm Marcy McKay.
And welcome to Sage Smart Solutions. Please join us weekly to learn new and exciting ways to protect your assets, retire tax-free. Let's get Uncle Sam out of your retirement plan.
Absolutely.
So I go into the coffee shop the other day, and there's a kid there that he had been looking at me when I first started going there, and I introduced myself, and then finally he goes, "Do you drive a red Jeep?" I was like, "Sometimes I do drive a red Jeep." And he said, "Well, I used to work at the Walmart, and you guys would come in there and do the grocery pickup."
Right.
And he was one of the guys.
At the beginning of the lockdown.
He was one of the guys
you're talking
that
about
delivered it. And so, we talked about that a little bit. But then I asked him, I said, "How long did you work at Walmart?" And the reason I wanted to know is because when they first started the delivery service and they shut down the inside, you couldn't go in the store for a while. We started using the delivery service, and the summer of 2020, it was hot like it is now.
Right. Brutal.
In the hundreds. And I just, the delivery area is on the south side of the building, and it just gets baked all day long. And I just reached out to him a couple of times, said, "You need to get some shade out there."
No tent.
There's nothing.
For these kids who are, having to wear jeans, working all day long, and the Walmarts down the road in Amarillo, they all had covered parking.
Well, but the one in it was really busy, so they were
Right.
going nonstop, and these kids would come out sweating, and they were having to wear masks,
so hard.
and so I just said, just go buy the shades, put a little bit of something out there,
help these kids out.
And a couple of times people were like, "You know what? That's a great idea. It would be easy to do. I've presented that. They're gonna get back to me." Nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing. Lots of people saying this is a great idea.
Right.
And so I asked.
2.5 years later, still nothing.
Yeah. So I asked this kid, how did they ever mention anything? And he started there a while after I'd given up. But he said, "I worked there 11 and a half months." And the way he said it,
right, very specific.
I think maybe that he was coming up on an anniversary and was due for a bump or something, and maybe they should. I didn't, I'm waiting at the counter of the coffee shop. We didn't sit down in the corner. But we got to talking, and I said, I told him about how I'd spoken to a few managers, and he said, "I had 5 managers in that 11 and a half months." He said the turnover there was just ridiculous.
Right.
And I said, "Well, what's happened? This is not just Walmart, but we had the inventory scares, the supply chain inventory issues from early on in the pandemic. You couldn't get toilet paper, you couldn't get
yeast,
bottled water, hand sanitizer, yeast, flour, that kind of thing. And then after that, when things started going back to normal and you started seeing increased demand, you had labor issues.
The Great Resignation.
Well, yeah, and they were staffed for a pandemic lockdown, essentially.
Right.
They were getting government, the payroll protection program. But as things, that demand came back and people started going out and buying things, and they didn't have enough employees. And part of that, people were saying, well, the government's got the stimulus, it's disincentivizing people to go out and find jobs. But in reality, a lot of it was that these, the wage growth for these industries was trailing behind everything in this country. So
right.
But they had to go out and hire more people, and a lot of times they'd rather do that than try to retain the people they've got for some reason, I guess, because they can start them off slow. But
slow, you mean like lower pay or?
yeah.
Okay.
So they had to go out and hire more people,
Right.
which is expensive.
Right.
But two, they had to work harder to hire these people. They had to make it more attractive in order to give them incentives to come and deal with, remember what retail was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was a very stressful position. And this didn't happen just in retail, but so the kid's telling me about how all the managers he had turned over said, this is not just Walmart,
Right.
but companies, they hate when they've got somebody with $1 in their hand there and they don't have something to sell them.
Right.
So they overreacted with the supply side inventory. Then, maybe they overreacted with hiring and they don't care. They're gonna if they're going to extremes means that they hire a whole bunch of people for a short time and then lay them off, they don't care.
So is that kind of like how Netflix is laying off a bunch of people now?
Well, I was telling him, and so I tell him, and he looks at me and goes, do you do consulting with the management at Walmart? I go, because what I was saying was so spot on with what had happened and what he had, and this kid's 19.
Right.
I don't think he'd had a whole lot of economic classes, but you could see the wheels turning. And it's starting to make sense. He's like, were you doing consulting with these guys? How, I said, no, as you see it, lots of companies have started announcing layoffs. Tesla. Mm-hmm. Elon Musk came out and said, what did he say? I've got a super bad feeling.
Super bad feeling.
I can't do an Elon Musk impersonation. That's sounding offensive, I'm sure. He's got a super bad feeling about the economy, so he's laying off like 10% of the Tesla workforce. Peloton. So you had a lot of the lockdown, the stocks that did well during the lockdown.
Right.
Peloton is laying off people.
Netflix
is laying off people. You've got a lot of the real estate. You've got a huge bubble in the real estate market, and it's a number of factors have built into that. But do you know what the median price of a house in Aspen is right now? Because we did see a little bit of a slowdown in the housing market in Aspen, which doesn't slow down for the past 30 years. So,
the median house in Aspen, $2 million.
That's a median. That's a median shed in Aspen.
Okay.
This one freaked me out because I was thinking, 2 to 4.
Yeah.
Not for median. But
Okay.
Aspen is,
Yeah.
I don't know how far you have to move out of Aspen if you're a
Right.
service employee, but the median price of a house in Aspen right now is $10.9 million.
Wow.
So when we teach you how to buy that house, when the market corrects and you've got this big pool of money, take me fishing. So Mark, come on over.
We are lovely guests.
I'm 7 hours from Aspen.
We get there in a day.
I've got my own waders and my own net. So, we can definitely get there in a day. We can be there by brunch. Anyway, so why were we talking? Oh, Zillow has laid off people. Both, I think they've got like a realtor and then a mortgage lending.
So we've got the extremes within the pandemic. How do we circle this back to our
Well, you also
viewers?
had J.P. Morgan Chase
Right.
is laying off people because of we've never seen mortgage rates go up this quickly. So you're starting to see the companies react accordingly. But this is a great time. There have been a couple of law changes. We had some changes to Rule 7702, which if you've looked at infinite banking or be your own banker, any kind of cash value life insurance strategy that can get you double-digit returns to provide tax-free income.
Safely.
The laws have become more favorable. Some of the tax code from 21, but we're also, the rising interest rates actually can benefit the early years in this type of a structure. So if you've not looked at one of these in a while, watch the Masterclass.
Yeah.
Send me a message. We will put together a strategy. I will put together a customized plan to provide tax-free income for you. And then when you retire, or let's say 5 years from now, and the Aspen real estate market bottoms, But mortgage rates are still high.
Right.
You've got this big pool of money here that
Right.
you can access, and you can declare what the interest rate is yourself. You don't have to let JP Morgan Chase say, you need to pay us 9% in order to go buy. If the median price of a house gets to about $7-8 million in Aspen, jump on it. So I don't know about that.
But what I love about the Masterclass is that it's so educational. 40 minutes of your time. We won't see if you've watched it or not. You can watch it in the privacy of your own home.
Which means we're not going to
Right,
drip on you daily.
we're not going to spam you, and hound you or anything like that. That's not our style. But anyway, it's called Protect Your Assets and Retire Tax-Free. 40 minutes, you will learn so much. I was very impressed. It's just educational, simple, well done. But check it out, and that will just let you know if you feel like we are a good match for you.
Well,
to make the next
if we
step.
see,
and you'll learn something regardless.
If we enter an extended bear market, you can say, you know what, I took these steps and I took these steps.
Right.
Maybe it's not right for you. Maybe you've got other assets that are doing whatever, but you'll know.
Right.
Whereas if you just sit there and you do nothing, you think, well,
Right.
my 60-40
Educate
blend
yourself.
that the guy said I should buy mutual funds for is down 30-40%. Just protect yourself.
Right. There are smarter, safer ways out there
Let's
than
provide-
what Wall Street is telling you.
Yeah, and what are you going to do about taxes? Taxes are going to go up in the future. You know it. I know it. The government knows it.
Right.
Let's plan accordingly.
Good job.
Have a great week. Kind.